right here. If anybody comes in late, we'll let them sign the sheet and address us, but I think in the interest of time and weather, we'll just get everything going, unless there's objections, in which case I'll entertain them, but I'll probably reject them. Okay, good evening. This is the public hearing pursuant to Article 30 of the Public Health Law, Section 3008, relative to the application of the South Line Fire District Number 10, seeking to convert its municipal declaration of need to permanent operating authority within the boundaries of the fire district, or in the alternative, for an expansion of its operating territory within the boundaries of the town of Cheektowaga. My name is Melissa Finger, and I'm the hearing officer in this matter tonight. The hearing is now called to order. The sole item on the agenda is the application of the South Line Fire District Number 10 to convert its municipal declaration of need to permanent operating authority within the boundaries of the fire district, or in the alternative, for expansion of its operating territory within the town of Cheektowaga. Before we begin, I have a few preliminary matters that I need to address. Is there a representative of the Wyoming-Erie Regional EMS Council present? Okay, so could you state your name and title for the record, please?
Brian Bronner, Chair-elect, Wyoming-Erie Regional EMS Council.
Okay, can we swear Brian in, please?
Could you just raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, did you establish a date, time, and location for the public hearing to review the application submitted by South Line Fire District and receive all public comments regarding the application?
Yes.
Okay, do you have a copy of the notice of public hearing reflecting the date, time, and location established by the council for the record tonight? Thank you. I'm going to accept this as Exhibit 1. Has the notice of hearing been made and consistent with the requirements of the Department of Health requirements, namely that the notice of hearing was published in one or more newspapers having a general circulation within the proposed service coverage area, and were such publications done at least 14 days prior to today?
Yes.
Okay, are there affidavits of publication? Thank you. I will mark these as Exhibit 2
Excellent.
for the record. Was the notice of hearing sent in accordance with Public Health Law, Section 3008, by certified or registered mail, return receipt requested to everyone who is required to be put on notice of this hearing, consistent with the Department of Health requirement?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then, is there an affidavit of service? This is your affidavit of service. I'm going to accept the affidavit of service as Exhibit 3. All right, and then do you have a copy of the current ambulance service certificate for the South Line Fire District? Thank you.
Yes.
I will accept this as Exhibit 4. Okay, do you have an original copy of the application submitted? Okay. Whoa. All right, this is going to be Exhibit 5. I'm going to give it back to you because I have an unbound version of it, which will be sufficient for my use. Has the application been deemed complete by the regional council?
Yes.
And what was the date of the completion that it was deemed complete?
November 15th. Okay.
Thank you. And have there been any statements received in support of the application?
Those with the application. Any additional?
None since.
No addition.
Okay, so there have been no additional. So the ones that we've received so far are contained in the application that you've just provided to me, correct? Okay. So the order of the hearing tonight is that the applicant will have the opportunity to present his application to the public, and then any amendments to the application may be presented, none are required. After the applicant has presented the application in its entirety, members of the public in attendance at the hearing who wish to address the hearing officer or ask any questions regarding the application may do so. Once all who wish to speak have been given the opportunity to speak, any written position statements that anybody submitted will be put on the record, if there are some. So could you swear in the first witness for us, and that will be, yes, Tom.
Could you just raise your right hand?
Sure.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Could you state your name for the record?
Todd, TODD, Roland, ROL, Andy.
Thank you.
So Exhibit 5 was the application. Is that a complete and accurate copy of the application?
That's correct.
Okay. And do you wish to make any amendments to the application in any way? Okay. And do you have anything that you would like to add or highlight with respect to the application for us to consider?
Sure.
Okay. And the purpose of this certificate of need is to determine whether there is a need for the service that is being applied for. And I just want to clarify that you're applying for a certificate of need for either within your fire district or in the alternative within the whole of the town of Cheektowaga. Is that correct?
Yes, it's to continue, it's to make our temporary permanent
Okay.
and then expand our territory to the town borders, which is what.
Okay, and does anyone wish to speak at the hearing in support of the application or against the application? Can we get anyone who signed it?
You do want me to?
Thank you. Okay, so I have Jack Place from Forks Fire District, or Forks Fire Department, I'm sorry.
Yes, that's me.
Okay, you wanna say your piece?
I'm just here to support what South Line's doing. I wish we had the resources in my department to do what they're doing. I wish them the best of luck. I give them all the credit in the world for what they're doing. And I don't know what's holding the process up, but I think at this point, with the ambulance problem that we have in this town, it should be granted to them for sure.
Okay, and then I have David Pasalugo.
It's right here. My department and myself also support definitely what South Line's doing. They got countless hours of, training into this program, been going great. I know they've helped our department out and our neighboring departments out. And, I agree with Jeff here. It definitely needs to move forward. We support it 100%.
And then Jason Tolsma from Cheektowaga.
Hi, Jason Tolman, the Director of Emergency Services and Safety for the town of Cheektowaga. I don't see any reason why the CUN for both the transport for the fire district or the expansion to the town's territory would have a negative impact on us. We do have difficulties on occasion finding additional resources to have transport services. So the additional resources that the South Line Fire District can provide will only help all the residents of the town of Cheektowaga and the neighboring communities. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have a couple questions for you, Todd. So as I read the application, the town of Cheektowaga has a contract with AMR currently, correct?
Correct.
And AMR is considered it's an exclusive contract, is that correct terminology?
Currently exclusive.
Okay. And do you provide any services through AMR or in association with AMR to the other areas of the town?
No, we don't associate or provide a service with them.
Okay. And then, how many fire districts are there in the town of Cheektowaga?
There are currently 10.
And how many of them provide some level of ambulance or transport services?
We are currently the only fire company in the town that has ambulance service. Transport services.
You do have a mutual aid agreement though with East Seneca, correct?
We do.
And what is East Seneca, what is that? Tell me the terms of that mutual aid agreement.
Our agreement with East Seneca, when we were doing the CON for transport, required that we had a minimum of an ALS backup to what we were moving forward with, and that's why we made the agreement with East Seneca, which is in East Seneca.
Okay,
They currently have an ALS transport in their paramedic level.
okay. So on the budget that was submitted with the application, it shows that you're 100% taxpayer funded. It didn't show any other sort of, revenues for the fire district. It was a very succinct budget. I noticed that you were also billing for ambulance services that you're providing, and you didn't show that as any kind of revenue source.
We started, so our first year of having the ALS transfer, we didn't initially start the bill.
Okay,
And then we began the billing process on getting both Medicare and Medicaid numbers, our NPI numbers for that.
okay,
We recently, within the last 2 months, have gotten the numbers for billing for Medicare, Medicaid.
okay,
We do have the ability to bill HMOs, which aren't Medicare, Medicaid,
Mhm.
and that money can go back into an account and
Okay,
put that in, but currently, we just started doing this.
okay. And I'm correct in saying that you're requiring the EMT training for all of your firefighters, is that correct?
Currently at South Line, is you come in, one of the lowest requirements is EMT basic.
Okay. And how long has that been in place?
20 years.
Okay, thank you. Mhm. So part of your application is to expand the operating territory to include the town of Cheektowaga.
Right.
Could you not service that area through mutual aid agreements with AMR or with your neighboring fire districts?
The expansion was a recommendation of our lawyer,
Okay,
in the fact that it wasn't just mutual aid that we were worried about. We do go outside, the town of Chickawaga, into the Pew. As
Okay.
well as, Lancaster. And one of the recommendations, to make our expansion for Gordon Chickawaga through mutual aid and hence for.
okay. So when you go into Depew and Lancaster, is that through, an agreement with the towns or is that?
Generally, what happens, we get called by one of the town Chickawaga companies that orders a few, and then they request us that.
Okay. Now, I noticed that AMR did submit a letter in opposition to your application for the expansion of your territory. Because they indicated that they felt that they had two mutual aid partners and two private ambulance services that could pick up their slack.
Right.
What is your, response to that?
If you don't mind, I actually put it in a PowerPoint question.
Sure.
So during our 2 years of having the temporary CON for transport, we did track calls that pulled us into positions where we found ourselves doing that exact reason. So initially, the town population is 88,000, which is like looking 20 years ago, it's down from 93 to 88. Currently, there's 10 fire districts, approximately 45% of all the population lives in our fire district.
Okay,
And the town of Cheektowaga is approximately 29 square miles, and our district alone is about 3 square miles. Totally serve probably about 60,000 calls a year in the town of Cheektowaga, where 80% of them are police related, 20% are EMS related. So that equates to about 1,100 calls that we get a month, EMS related between all the fire companies.
Okay.
So basically, if you look at it, I'm sorry about the up here, but thank you. The fire companies that actually do exist here, you can see where the membership requirements are here.
okay,
The current memberships at Bellevue's 38, Cleveland Hills 43. Basically, I broke it down to what the stats. We have 76 fire current members and the training of each member. And basically, the calls for service per day is what we actually cover. So
okay,
again, this is nothing. When you look at this stat, you got to realize that the population that we're able to pull from Southline is a denser population compared to other fire districts. So
okay,
it's not like they're not trying, it's just they don't have the dense population to pull through.
right,
So, with the proof of need, a couple of things that did come up, obviously, on the town of Chickawaga did an independent survey. It was done in the mid of 2023 to evaluate the system that exists. And basically, one of the things that they did come up with looking into it, but some of the things they looked into is they found that there was a decent coverage within the town of Cheektowaga between the fire companies and AMR, but they also found there were gaps in the system where they did need help. So one of the things they suggested to the town was to look at a municipal CON for the town itself. And the problems for that obviously is the supply chain issue, how long it takes to get an ambulance. It's not clear with the startup of Erie County ambulance service, how well they can support the town in any type of need. And open competition, one of the things they looked at is to look at other outside agencies like Mercy EMS and Catholic Health has recently applied for the CON process.
okay,
But one of the recommendations they did say is partnership with nonprofits, Lancaster Ambulance, as well as Southline Fire.
Have you had conversations with the town about engaging in a contract with them to provide services?
Yes, we met with the town supervisor,
Okay.
and he was very clear in the sense that he knows there's a need. But he said as of now, budgetary constrictions, that he wouldn't have any ability until 2026 to put any type of monies into development of municipal CON or add on to the town.
But couldn't he enter into an agreement with your fire district to provide services within the town? I mean, I know they're in process of negotiating or renegotiating their contract with AMR. Where
Right,
are they in that process? Do you know?
yeah, we're currently making the rest of the application process to get it back to AMR for an RFP.
Okay,
But we're looking March, April before they actually look and sign it.
okay, because I'm just, exploring other like means to, and can you give me a copy of this?
Sure.
Okay, that would be helpful.
But with the understanding that when we did meet with the town supervisor, our goal is not to be the primary response for the town of Cheektowaga. It's no secret that the
Right.
volunteer service, it's overwhelming, the amount of calls they would have to take, and it would honestly destroy the fire department.
So how would you envision, if you had a CON for the town of Cheektowaga, how would you envision the service that you would provide in conjunction with what is already in place by AMR?
Do not-
Tell me how that would work.
We'd be a safety net for the calls that can't be answered.
So you'd be overflow essentially.
Exactly. So this is where we broke out for 18 months, where we did have it. During this, the ALS transport with our temporary certificate, the things we did find were 41 out of 74 calls, the total of 74 are either late and or couldn't find an ambulance. 41 of this, 55% of them, calls within Southline Fire District and outside where we were called into the town to transport people because there were no ambulances available.
Okay.
The other thing that we found on these calls, mutual aid called for assistance with transport. Like there's a company on the farther north to us, they're being called by the Pew
Mhm.
because they don't have transport services, and then they call us to help them out.
Okay,
Other thing we did find is BLS ambulances being sent to ALS calls, where we are dispatched to help out with that as well as change it over for, we do the ALS as well. And then looking at the late calls, the contract currently states the standard average is about 8 minutes.
Mhm.
I guess nationally it's 10. But looking at those percentage of calls for those, which is about 33 calls out of the 74 that we track, 19% were 10 to 20 minutes late, 28%, 21 to 30 minutes, 33% up to 40 minutes, and then 20% of those calls were greater than 40-minute wait.
So when you're looking at those percentages, is that a percentage of the 33 that were the late calls, not
Yes.
the 74, correct?
Exactly.
Okay, I just wanted to understand.
Yeah, 41 were no ambulances available,
Okay.
33 were late.
These are within the entire town or just your district?
It was in our district that affected us where we got pulled into the town.
Okay, so it was calls that you were involved in,
Right.
either because of the location or because you were called for mutual aid?
That's correct.
Gotcha.
That's how it breaks down to where we found that there was a safety net that needed to be put into place.
So if I called for an ambulance and I lived in the South Lake Fire District, who would respond to my call?
You get Southline Fire,
Okay,
would come to initially to the
Okay.
call. AMR would send an ambulance if available.
okay, or would they send a paramedic in a fly car?
No, they don't
Okay,
send, no.
okay, so you would be the initial response?
Yes.
And then if you needed a higher level of care prior to transport, you would have to wait for AMR, is that correct?
No, AMR sends
Okay,
with us at the same
Okay.
time.
so you both respond?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct. And depending on the ambulance, if it's ALS and it's an ALS call
Mhm.
and they're there, they'll take the call.
Okay,
If it's an ALS call and they only send a BLS, we'll take the call
so is that what you would envision if you had the entire town as part of your CON?
to help out. Yes, to be a safety net for when there's gaps into
But you
that.
wouldn't have the double response that you currently have in
No.
Southwick?
No.
Okay, you would be waiting to be called by
Right.
somebody?
Yes, our average response time within a town is about 3.5 minutes.
Okay. And the call information that was provided in the application, thank you very much, was solely for your district, right, within that timeframe?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, I think that's all the questions that I have. Does anybody have anything that they want to add or speak about before we sort of, or do you have anything more that you want to just because I think we're ready to call the hearing unless anybody has something more that they want me to consider or additional information that they'd like to put forward in support of the application.
I think that the only last thing I'd want to say is the application process for what we're looking for will not affect at any point, any business that currently has any contractual relationship with the township of Tulaga.
Okay,
Absolutely none. It's just a safety net for if that contract can't be held up, but it does not undermine any monies to be adjusted.
I appreciate your vision, but I think that the issue that I'm struggling with, maybe you can tell from the questions that I'm asking, is the nature of that CON and the authority that it provides you.
Mm.
And taking it from that process where you could accomplish the same thing through contract or through mutual aid agreements. That's kind of where my head is at. And so I need to look at all of the materials again, take a look at what you've presented now, and then obviously make my recommendations and, you know, the council will ultimately make the final decision. But thank you for
Yes.
the additional information and for your insights.
I mean, ultimately, I think what we understand as fire departments within the town, we've had many contracts with many ambulance services. 20 years ago, there were 2 ambulance services that covered the town, they rotated,
Yeah.
and it was less gaps. But currently, our IFP looks for one individual.
So one of the issues that has been sort of discussed, and I think it's included in some of the materials that you put in the application in that study that you quoted, was the sort of demand on the number of EMTs and trained professionals in an area,
Right.
and how these various sort of entities will draw from that talent pool,
Right.
and what that will result in terms of service overall.
Right.
So that's the other consideration I think that we're talking about, and I think it's admirable to me that you have taken a position as a fire district to ensure that your firefighters are trained at that EMT level. I think that's great. Unfortunately, you know, the way that the emergency services works, we have all these administrative rules, as you know, from putting together that crazy application that make it very difficult for some of these decisions to be made. But I will look at everything, as I said, I'll make my recommendations and ultimately it'll be the council's decision. But thank you for your time and for the
Right.
information that you provided.
Thanks. I mean, ultimately, I think the thing that really points out the most of what we need to look at is the town census has dropped,
Mhm.
but our call volume has increased by 20%.
Because your demographics have changed, you have an older
Exactly.
population, I saw that in the application, I get what's driving, I 100% get what is driving this, and I 100% can appreciate the commitment that you have to the service to the community. It's very evident in the materials that you've submitted, and so again, you know, we'll look at it within the framework that exists and the issues that we have to work out, and, you know, I'll put my recommendations together.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yep. Appreciate your time. Sure, could you submit, do
council
you have
copy
another
of
copy of
PowerPoint?
this? Yeah,
Sure.
okay, sure, perfect. You're welcome.
That's only 6.
Oh, we can mark this, but I don't have a copy for her, so,
That's okay, because I think we can circulate electronically.
okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So do we exhibit this? Perfect. So this is the exhibit 6, if you want to take a look at, you can have it instead of shutting it down. All right, so that PowerPoint will be exhibit 6 for the record. And as I said, if nobody has anything else that they want to add, the hearing is now come to a close. Safe driving, everybody. You're-